Hey, everybody. Welcome. We are so excited for today. I am Sandy Hilsenrath. I am a fundraising consultant here on the advancement team, and I'll do my little 8-second commercial. We are HGA Fundraising, and we help nonprofits raise more money with the most profitable auction items in fundraising. And so, Jason, if you would just introduce yourself, and then we'll let Lisa go for it as well.
Yeah, Jason Ledlow, one of the co-founders here at HGA Fundraising. Excited to be here with Lisa and Sandy, and we're going to see if we can help you guys raise more money.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'm Lisa Lager of Lisa Lager Consulting, and I'm honored to be here today. Thanks for inviting me. I'm a nonprofit and philanthropy consultancy. I empower charitable organizations to diversify their revenue streams and work with generous individuals on their philanthropy, and also help coaching fundraising and development professionals to excel in their careers. I have a 40-year career. I'm in overall fundraising expertise, as well as a specialty in plan giving, legacy, endowment building, after lifetime giving. I've worked at some of the largest nonprofits in the country. I was director of plan giving at Weill Cornell Medicine for 10 years. I also led the legacy and plan giving programs at American Cancer Society's Eastern Division. I worked with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and also the Anti-Defamation League. So wow. I come from an events background, actually. So that's interesting. And I've helped raise many multi-million-dollar gifts. And I think at this point, my initiatives have raised nearly $1 billion. So
wow.
Wow.
Well, Lisa,
thank
thank you for all that service. It's kind of cool. We were talking about this yesterday. We were doing a little pre-meeting. We've got about 100 years of experience between all three of us. So it's kind of fun, when you're talking to somebody who's been doing it for a long time and seeing all the changes, because it's different now. I mean, things have changed a lot. Some things are just still the same. I mean, there's some basic fundamentals that are still the same for sure. But so glad you could be here, Lisa.
My pleasure.
So now during my time in development, I, legacy giving was not my wheelhouse, right? I knew about it. We were kind of coached on it just to, help identify some prospects. But why don't we start with telling us a little bit, well, what is legacy giving, right? I mean, I'm sure everyone here has heard of it, but they might not have gotten their feet wet yet.
Sure. And I just want to preface by saying, why is all this important? I want to make sure that, people know that if you aren't already doing so, what's holding you back from helping one of your annual donors make a gift that's 200 to 400 times their annual gift? What's holding you back? And, we all have to remember that it's not about asking for yourself. It's asking for your organization and providing information. So my expertise is to really help organizations and professional fundraisers get through that reluctance to discuss this important area. And so this is, plan giving, gift planning, deferred giving, strategic philanthropy. It has a lot of names, but the bottom line is it helps donors to contribute assets during their lifetime or let you know about their gift. And it sustains the future of the organization. And they can leave a lasting legacy as well. So it's a wonderful win-win-win. So,
well, just as an example comes to my mind, Lisa.
Yes.
I had a customer, a client, one of our clients, longtime friend of mine. She's retired now from being the CEO, but she was given an example one time. She said, "You never know when somebody has this ability." They had a donor who, for like 15 years, had given them less than $1,000 a year. So it was, maybe like a year-end giving, $500, this, that, and the other. But they still stewarded her, and I say steward, I don't really like that deal. Because they thanked her and showed gratitude and talked to her. She left him $1 million. Wow.
Well, so.
And they had no idea. So you talk about 200 to 400 times. It really is. I mean, these things are out, these opportunities are out there.
So great story. I was saving my story for later, but I have many stories, but one of the most amazing stories was a man who called us up asked for some legal language. I gave him the information, how to leave it to Weill Cornell Medicine, his bequest. It turns out he passed away several months later. We heard from the attorney. It was going to be a $20 million gift.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but because the stock market went whoop, it became a $42 million gift.
Oh my
This
gosh.
was a $1,000 donor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you just never know. And, I'm going to talk about that more, but you don't know because this isn't something that people have to let you know about. If you do proper marketing, engagement, and follow-up, to steward your donors, to cultivate them, to have conversations about these other ways of giving. They may come forward, they may let you know, but often you only really know about 30% of the gifts that you eventually will get in bequests and
30%, you said?
Yeah, you're only getting,
Wow.
you only hear about, so the 70% are out there percolating, whether you hear from them or not. You may get a gift from them, and the gifts range from 1,000 to the millions, and you have to treat everybody kindly, and you have to
That's right.
consider that maybe they don't look like millionaires, but maybe they have amassed a fortune in retirement assets or a stock account or real estate or a farm.
That's a really good point. And I want to just ask you, Lisa, on this. So I heard somebody say this the other day. It was somebody posted on LinkedIn, and they said, they're not your donors. You're one of their charities.
That's right.
And I thought that was a really, really good analogy as far as the way we start thinking, because, it's like as fundraisers, we kind of clamp onto somebody and we're going, no, that's my donor. Lisa's my donor. And Sandy's like, well, no, she's my donor. Well, we just happen to be one of her charities, and she's got a list of 15. And so I talk to us about that, about how we need our mindset as fundraisers when we're looking at these folks, just like you said, because we all have a tendency to put people in a certain place. We put them in a box. Sandy's been given $100 a month. She's one of our partners, and Jason gives 25 and Lisa gives 1,000. But so we put these things in a little box where we think they are. And are we getting that right, or should we keep our mind open a little bit more?
Well, certainly, if you're assertively calling people, you might prioritize by what you think you speculate their wealth may be, but you don't know. So your marketing really should try to reach as many people as possible to let them come forward. This is not a transactional kind of fundraising. It's donor-centric, relationship building.
Yep.
They decide what's the right gift, the right time, the right program, and when is it going to be a current gift or a future gift? At this level, it is very customized and bespoke, and you can't treat them like a $25 donor or a $1,000 donor. You have to approach these conversations in a more nuanced way.
And you talked about what kind of gift, or talk to us a little bit more about non-cash assets. Excuse me. We talked about this, and what is a non-cash gift? What is it? And
Sure.
What can that look like?
Well, just to back up a little, as far as this donor-centric, personalized philanthropy, your donor, you may be dealing with the donor in terms of their annual gift, their event gift, their direct mail gift, a cash gift, which is out of income. As Russell James, he's one of the icons in the field, mentions, most of people's wealth is actually not in cash. It's their assets, their non-cash assets, stock, portfolios, real estate, the farm, it may be in a donor advised fund. It might be their home. So you have to, when you have these conversations, you may want, I was going to talk about it later, but ask, if you're asking for more than the annual gift, you may be starting with a conversation about, well, how might you want to make that gift? You may not realize that there may be some tax advantages to using some appreciated stock instead of cash. Maybe you have some appreciated stock that you if you sold it, you'd incur some capital gains. But if you gave your gift to charity, you might have significant capital gains savings. If you have an IRA, if you're over, I think it's 70 and a half, you can give as much as $108,000 per year per person in a couple as a rollover from your IRA. So it won't be taxed as income, but you can use that asset instead of your cash income, let's say.
I talked to somebody just the other day, and they had made a withdrawal from a 401k, some retirement, and they were going to incur the tax, and they didn't want to. And so what they did is they said, well, I didn't want to pay that tax. I don't need the money. And they went down and turned it into a contribution because they wanted to do that, because they didn't need the money. They wanted to do something, and they wanted to bypass the tax. And
that's great.
I think
better to use, that asset than the cash, because it's a cheaper gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's one thing we don't think about, but most people of wealth don't keep that much cash. Not really. I mean, I'm not saying they're not broke, but they usually have the money tied up some way and working.
Wealth, there's 27% in real estate, 22% in stocks and bonds, 5% in cash, 11% in retirement plan assets.
That's eye-opening. Yeah.
And 24% in business interests, and a few other areas. But that's how people will feel the wealth and ability to be more generous if you talk beyond the cash that they have.
Well, so Lisa, help, because I have no experience in this part of fundraising at all.
Sure.
So talk to me how that conversation would go.
We'll have to think ahead now. Well, again, everyone is a potential plan giving donor, and anyone can have that conversation. If you're talking to someone about a potential gift, you want to talk about, how did they get involved? Be curious, be interested in them. It's not about your capital campaign necessarily. It's not about you and the goal that you have to meet for the end of the year. These are marathon conversations, not sprints. They have to maybe take several years even. You have to be ready to let them percolate. People have to go talk with their advisors sometimes. But at a minimum, you should, talk to them about what their philanthropic goals are. How did they get involved? Why did they give every year? Is there something motivating them? Was there a family member that was touched by an illness, or was helped by this organization, or, what is compelling them about the mission? And also tell them how you got involved. There must be something in the mission that appeals to you. And if you're able to, as a fundraiser, make a planned gift yourself, even a minimal one, so that you can say, I did this. I wonder if you'll join me in making a similar gift. These are just various approaches that you might have. You can tell them about John, who had real estate that he didn't know. He wanted to sell the real estate, but it wasn't selling. So maybe he thought maybe he would contribute that down the road. But you could explain to him how that might happen. What kind of real estate would be attractive to the organization? Did he know that there's a way possibly he could live in that home? Let's say it was a vacation home or a permanent residence. He could live in that home, pay the maintenance and insurance for the rest of his life, but deed it over to the charity and get a significant tax deduction now. So there are just ways to do that and remove it from his estate.
So the tax deduction happens.
Immediately.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
That's
interesting.
In having the conversation, there's certainly, you want to have a little bit of
legality.
Preparation.
Right. There's a lot of legality there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But just you don't have to know all the facts or all the details when you have an initial conversation with somebody. Right. It can be as simple as, have you thought about this way of giving? Do you know that we have other ways you can contribute? Did you know we have a program where you can make a gift of cash or stock and receive income for life? It's called a charitable gift annuity. You can say, I don't know a lot about it, but I can get more information if you're interested. How does that sound? Or I can have my plan giving colleague or consultant get in touch with you to tell you a bit more. There are all kinds of different ways to give. So
I like the idea of sharing examples, right?
Sure.
John Smith is giving this way, has decided to give this way.
Yeah.
Do you encourage your clients to bring in maybe a board member, maybe, a real life example to have that
Sure.
conversation? Is that
Well, in your marketing, there's so many approaches to this. You want to make sure that you have plan giving opportunities mentioned everywhere. The legal language should be everywhere. And certainly if you could bring in someone to a board meeting, or if you can do testimonials or articles about wonderful legacy gifts that from living donors who are being recognized, or a donor that, like this gentleman who made this tremendous gift, we leverage these wonderful stories in our webinars, in our newsletters, in all of our materials. So we wanted to make sure that the word got out. And certainly, if you can bring them, the donor, to an actual meeting with the board, that's great. I did one of my webinars on estate and financial planning that I did during COVID, which were very successful, included 3 legacy donors talking about why they made their gifts. One was a bequest, one was for scholarship, one was for research, one did a gift annuity, one used retirement assets. Several of them did a combination of these gifts, blended gifts, in addition to outright gifts. So real life examples from peers certainly is better than asking directly. You don't necessarily want to ask directly. You want to tell a story, mention some great features of gifts that you have available at the organization, and have them sort of like say, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe why didn't I know about that sooner, is usually what they say.
Right. And you plant the seed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
there's some. Oh, please go ahead.
No, I could keep talking, but
well, I was just going to say, one of the things that you said I thought was really good is, look, I don't know how the mechanics work, but this is something that we could do. And I think one of the things that holds fundraisers back sometimes is we think we've got to have all the answers. And what my experience has been, it's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. Whenever you go and say somebody, hey, Lisa, this is something we've been talking about as an organization, about how to do some planned giving. And, you've been really generous to our organization. I just want to talk to you about it and see what your thoughts are. How could we go about setting something like this up and approaching this? And you get your stakeholders, who are your biggest fans. Well, they're the people that are giving you the most money already. To help those conversations and help figure it out.
Surprisingly, it's the people that give regularly.
It's encouraging
year,
to me when somebody says,
even a small amount.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
I hear audio. Sorry, I think we have a little technical thing there.
Yeah. Well, how about now? Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So I have these points where, but as fundraisers, we think we've got to have all of it figured out, and you don't. You're just trying to start a conversation, because has there ever been a time, Lisa, that you've ever walked up and said, hey, John Smith, I know you're loaded and got a lot of money. Why don't you make a non-cash gift to us?
No,
it never works that way,
no.
right? Because you just said it's a marathon. This is a long process, that these are conversations that happen over time, but they pay huge dividends.
Right. It's more that you're talking about them, you're listening to them, you're asking how they got involved. And then, you might mention that, did they know that so-and-so did this amazing gift? And maybe it's something they would want to know about. You'd almost feel it's a disservice if they didn't know, how much they care about the organization. They're passionate about it. They might want to know that there's a way to make an even bigger impact with gifts like this. If they have these kinds of assets, it might actually even help them solve a financial problem. Maybe they want to create a gift for their children in the future after they pass. So there might be a way to create a charitable lead trust that pays a major gift to the charity over a period of years, and then the balance will go to their children. Or maybe they need to take care of a relative, but they want to sort of manage the income stream. So they can set something up that eventually will leave the balance to the charity. But payments, annual payments will go to the children or maybe a parent or a relative.
I think there's more and more coming on this idea of legacy.
Yes.
Where people want to leave a legacy. They've worked hard, they've built these assets, they've done these things, and they don't want to just necessarily leave it to their kids because, number one, that can be very destructive to family members, and we've all heard the stories and things like that. So somebody starts wanting to do that, and talk to us about what you've seen as far as legacy being a motivator.
Well, certainly, I mean, we've talked about taxes and financial things, but there are people that just are devoted to the institution. If it happens to be a university, maybe they worked there as a professor, or maybe they were a student, an alum, or a grateful patient, like I said, or someone who's benefited from the research of an organization. They may want to perpetuate their own values and their passion for the organization by creating a legacy. And that's what's great about endowed gifts. They can provide, perpetual income back to the organization, and the endowment can be named for someone. Or they can be remembered as part of a legacy society that may memorialize their name, in a place at the organization. So it's a wonderful way, the annual gift that they've been giving can be perpetuated by a future gift that will spin off money.
Is that what's considered a blended gift?
That's an endowment. A blended gift, good question. Let's say there was an endowment that needed a certain amount per year to be funded, but if you gave a future gift, it wouldn't be received until the person passes away. They can actually decide to fund the program portion of the gift or endowment now, for as many years as necessary, as well as giving a future gift. That's a blended gift, now and later.
Got it. Now, so is that a good entree into the conversation, using that, because they may be annual donors already, and then you start talking about blended gifts now and then later. That to me sounds like a great way to get into the conversation.
Well, yeah, I did want to say there are some clues. Like, so when do you know to start these conversations? I mean, you could strategically schedule a call with somebody or meeting, but in general, let's say a donor says, I can't give now. Well, maybe they can give later,
Right.
Think about that. Or I don't have the cash. There's another entree to bring up the subject. I need to provide for my children or grandchildren. There is often pushback on cash gifts or annual gifts, or I'm worried about outliving my money. Well, we have a program where we can create a gift that'll spin off an annual payment stream to you, a quite attractive stream of payments, and also a tax deduction. I need more income. I have appreciated security. They may show you around their house, and you see they have artwork, they have a collection. They mention that they have additional real estate and vacation homes, or that they're selling a business. They may need a tax deduction, or they want to save taxes. So these are all clues for you to talk, then segue into a conversation about plan giving. Because if there are any impediments to the donor giving, you should try to address them with non-cash or plan giving techniques that might provide a solution for them. So you're providing value to them. It's not awkward if you're helping them,
Right.
So also, there are, as I mentioned, longstanding donors. People over 60 are typically your plan giving prospects. Those who are giving through stock or IRA gifts already may be more comfortable talking about planning. And again, anybody who's devoted or has financial concerns and wants to create a legacy.
Right.
Well, you brought that up, and so my wife and I we're reworking some of our financial stuff, right?
Mhm.
Just our estate documents and stuff like that. All of our
Right.
kids are out of the house, and two of our kids are over 30, and we've got four grandkids, and now we've got somebody who's we've got our youngest about to graduate from college. So so it's changed. Our stuff was set up when everybody was still
Right.
young and in
Home and
school and
yep.
doing all that. Well, it's just a completely different discussion. And so those are the kind of things that we're thinking and actively talking about. And it may feel weird, and it felt weird, in my 30s to talk about this stuff, but now I'm in my late 50s. It's just a part of it. It's just something we talk about. I mean,
Exactly. And
it's
I
the
mean,
reality.
we've jumped ahead, but I did want to say there's a lot of myths about plan giving, and a lot of fundraisers still feel a reluctance to bring it up. But the
Mhm.
donor
Stigma.
is not feeling reluctant. They're planning. They know their age, generally, and they have things to deal with in their family. So it's not about us. We have to
Right.
think,
We talk about that a lot, about projecting your feelings and, onto donors. We
well,
have
you
that
just
discussion a lot here.
yeah, you can't. I mean, it's about the information. It's about the mission
Hmm.
and the people that we serve. And and yes, we may be uncomfortable. We may be uncomfortable with our own finances or our own feelings about death and dying and these technical terms, but you can have a conversation. You can bring it up. You can get help. Uh, people are dealing with these issues. Friends and family are passing. They want also to be remembered. They want to remember a loved one. They may want to make a tribute gift. It means these are meaningful conversations that are helpful to the donor. A lot of people can't even get around to doing their dry cleaning or making their own appointments. But we can help them with their planning, and they appreciate it. They
Yeah.
are grateful. They are relieved when they get some help. So, and I wanted to say that another myth is, well, they must be, if they're wealthy, or they must have an advisor. We don't need to bring that up with them. The advisor will be telling them. Well, a financial advisor helps you build your wealth. An
Mm.
attorney helps you protect your wealth, right? But no one is necessarily helping them think about their charitable giving.
Mhm.
Most financial advisors don't really want you to give away your money. So we can be helpful. We don't give advice. We can provide some educational information and guidance, but it is truly helpful. And many of our donors have said to me, "Why didn't anyone tell me this before?" So
I want to just, and because I'm going to go back to something you said at the very beginning that was astounding to me. 70% of the gifts you never had a conversation, you didn't expect were coming. Now, that doesn't mean that you didn't put the information out there, but you didn't know that you had been, hey, just FYI, whenever I kick the bucket, get hit by a train, whatever, you're going to get this X. That
we
they
may have
didn't
had a
know that.
conversation, but
Yeah.
but they may not have told us anything. Not even, there's something in the will.
Hmm.
So that means we need to be as fundraisers, putting this information out there, letting people know, whether, even if you don't have and I'm
Mm-hmm.
projecting here. So if you don't have even if I haven't had a conversation with you, but we sent out an email, we sent out a letter, we put a part in our year-end ask to say, about legacy giving and stuff like this. And so we do. So is that what you're talking about? Is how we
That
can
is
put this information out there?
first and foremost for the organization. You need to have some information on your website. You need to have it on your letterhead. How do you leave would you like to leave a bequest to our organization? Here's the legal language, or I was thinking, at your events, I know events is a big focus for your business. You should make sure to have a legacy society that has an event once a year, if possible.
Hmm.
Um, Before an event, you can have a reception or discussion or a workshop. You can have ribbons or badges that honor the people that already made a gift.
I love that.
You could
I
send
love
out,
that
there are
indicator.
a lot of donor surveys and questionnaires these days. Well, the main punchline is: have you included our organization in your plans, or have you thought about that? We know how important our organization is too. But you want to give people as many opportunities as possible to self-identify, even in a subtle way and a little check-off box. But then they've said, I'm interested, or I have done something, or I would consider including the charity in my estate plans or financial plans.
I like the way you asked that question.
It's just very, the whole thing has to be very subtle and oblique. You don't, no hitting them over the head with the topic. It is sensitive, and it should be respectfully presented. But that's one way through your marketing. It should be pervasive and consistent. A lot of, cash is king. I know that in many organizations, but it's a disservice to the organization to not also market plan giving, because truly that is where the largest ROI, return on investment, is. So as far as talking to people, there's many other ways to market. So they may come forward that way, inquiries. You can start to cultivate them. You can ask them to join your legacy society, send them more information. But if you're having conversations with any donor and you get this kind of pushback, or they've been involved a long time, it's okay to bring this up. Keep it simple, keep it oblique, not directly about plan giving. Share what motivates you about your organization's mission. Tell them you're maybe a legacy donor too. Give them some news about a new program, a new building, new leadership. And this donor that you heard just made an amazing gift of their retirement assets, which funded, an entire endowment for scholarship, things like that. Very high level.
Okay. I was just going to say, what are some great ways to acknowledge them? And you talked about a lapel pin. I really like that. Jason, we were talking about a golden paddle for folks who do monthly giving, or, but this would work that way as well. But what are some other ways and places you can acknowledge them? People who have planned.
Well, sure. Like I said, we had, these can be customized and developed depending on the organization. But a legacy society, if you don't already have one, you name it something unique to the organization.
And does that go in your annual report, maybe?
You can list them there. Yes, list the names in the annual report, possibly virtually. You get their approval to list the names. You acknowledge them like you would a board member or another giving society member in a name tag. Legacy gifts are typically not put on a wall because you have not necessarily received the gift yet, but some organizations will list them on a physical space. But after the gift is received, ultimately, there can be recognition for that person or their family on a physical listing, because it's cash that comes in and is worthy of recognition.
I'm thinking of a national nonprofit that I know right now, and they're real. Everybody, if you've got that designation, you got a little pin that you walk around with. They put it in a book. They make a big deal about it, and they talk about it. And they're really, and I didn't think about it till just now. They talk about it openly. It is like it's just out there. And I've heard other donors I was at a conference with a bunch of that they had, and I was there and they were talking about, I put down, and these guys were openly talking about how they were going to leave money out of their estate.
Bravo.
To the organization.
Right.
And they're just talking about each other. Well, yeah, I've got this property. And it was kind of what you said. And it just clicked, this conversation, and I didn't really pick it up at the time. And the guy said, yeah, well, I'm not leaving my vacation place and such to my kids, because they don't really go. They don't care about it. He goes, so I'm leaving it to the organization. He goes, we've already set it up. I set the deed up, blah, 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 that and the other. And it's, whatever you said. He said, it's mine until I die. And then it just immediately goes, or it's already theirs, but it's mine to use until that happens. And it was just this open conversation. So I think, one of the things that it just, Lisa, that I hear you saying is, starting the conversation, start making it where it's, and as people hear that it's okay to talk about, they will do that. They'll talk about this stuff. They'll start bringing it up and having these conversations and having those. because I think one of the things is they don't even, and I believe this, that there's probably, and there's maybe somebody listening here that's a nonprofit, and they go, well, we're really not that big, and have never thought about it. It's just never come up.
Well,
Christy
certainly,
said,
if you don't bring it up, you certainly won't get any legacy gifts, right?
yeah.
Right. Jason, that's what we say. If you don't ask for it, you're not
Oh,
going to get it.
If you
don't ask for
if
more, you're
thou
not
do
going
not
to get
ask, thou shalt not receive. Yeah,
Yep.
it's absolutely true. Christy had a question. If you put that donor on a sign at your location, do you put one-time donors along with recurring donors?
This is a conversation that is a little too detailed for now. It has to fit into your overall recognition plan, and it is a good question.
Yeah.
But it just depends. Everyone
more
has to
nuance
be
to it.
aligned. They have to agree that it's very important, but also, you want to recognize your cash donors. That would be a priority for living donors to receive their names on a wall. And so you have to figure out what is an appropriate recognition space or listing for these kinds of donors. It can be accomplished, but it involves further conversations and strategy.
Hey, we've got just about a little over 20 minutes left. Any questions you guys have, please give it to us, and make sure you stay to the end because we're going to give something away. So don't leave. But any other questions y'all have, bring them up. We've got Lisa here. She's got all this knowledge, and it's such a neat conversation for me.
I wanted to say, also just you open the conversation, but you can always just say, please, if you're not sure about if you're not sure about the technical aspects, say you'll get back to them, arrange a follow-up call, tell them you'll get a little more information, but you don't have to tell them everything in an initial conversation.
Well, it's kind of simple to go, Lisa, thank you so much. Now I don't know how to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but I can assure you we'll figure that out. And that's where you're coming from, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lisa, I do have I'm sorry, were you going to say something? I have a question afterward. I have a burning question. So you talked a lot about annuities and those types of things. You also mentioned art, right? Donating art. Well, when you and I had our conversation, we were talking about sometimes it's appropriate to decline a gift. And so you mentioned a racehorse. Somebody donated a racehorse.
I actually have, an example of when do you look a gift horse in the mouth? Well, I was at an organization and a board member, I think it was his wife, asked if she could contribute a racehorse to the legacy campaign, but she wanted to have us hold and take care of the horse for a number of years, and then she wanted to buy it back from us. And so that's not really a gift, is it?
Right.
So you have to be able to, it's important to have gift acceptance policies. If you don't already have them, have someone create them. It also just gives you a way to say that I have to run that by my gift acceptance.
Right.
And, it also clarifies for everybody what is not a good gift. A timeshare is probably not a good gift. Real estate that's mortgaged, highly mortgaged, ends up not being a good gift. Something that has environmental issues, a gift, like that. Or if you are not a museum or art institution, it may be difficult to accept gifts of art if you can't show that they match your mission, because the donor may not get a full tax deduction. So you can't be their advisor, but you can sort of steer them away from problems. You always have to keep the donors informed about that, and you remind them to check with their advisors and to make sure you are not legal or financial advice for them. You work for the charity. You're providing information, but it's helppful information.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
It makes total sense. You were giving all these examples, and I was sitting there thinking, somebody says, I'm going to donate. It's the benefit for the racehorse was to the person donating it. There was no benefit. It was a cost. It was going to be an expense to the nonprofit.
Right.
And I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of that stuff. There's, but if somebody says, "Hey, I've got a Renoir, I'd like to donate you guys." Well, guess what? We could send it to Christie. Yeah, we would let it be a fantastic donation, but we're going to send it to Christie's and liquidate it because we can't spend, a painting.
Right.
Right.
You
And Lisa
can
mentioned
store
that
it.
an issue with tax deductibility potentially,
Yeah.
right? With something like
Yeah.
that doesn't connect
Yes.
with your mission, is not aligned with your mission.
Right. There may be ways to contribute it, but they may, if it's artwork not related to the mission, it may be that they only get the cost basis, what they bought it
Yeah.
for, as their deduction,
Mhm.
not the fair market value. And all
Well,
these
and
properties, they need a full, qualified appraisal in order to be considered.
Yeah, I think that that's the whole point. Sometimes these, the donor has something in mind. They've got something in mind. There's an advantage they're able to take care of. They think they're going to be able to offset, some income that they've picked up on something else, and they're trying to, avoid paying some taxes or something like that today. And they make a move like this, which
Yes.
we want to be receivers. We want to be the receiver of that, but not at an expense where it winds up costing that person or something. Because
Or
sometimes
the charity.
that's what I mean. Sometimes you
Yeah.
got to not only are you really looking out for yourself, but you're also looking out for your donor. Because sometimes
Yes.
they'll make an impulse move that might not be really good for anybody.
They might get audited.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of be sure they know that. Again, even with artwork, or whatever it is, if it turns out, you may have to say no. And that's not easy. It's very difficult when it's a board member or someone, in a powerful role in the organization.
Right. Who's
But-
well intended, right? But
Right, of course.
yeah.
But
yeah.
they may not understand the negative implications of a gift
Right.
that isn't helpful to the charity.
And that's why I like what
But
you
you
said
show them
about-
the ones that you can show them an asset that would be helpful.
Right.
Right?
And that's why I like what you said about having a policy, and thinking all this through beforehand and having it down on paper so that you can start that conversation or have a rebuttal back to, if it does.
And that's why it's helpful
is
to
on the
have
list.
a plan giving specialist or a consultant that you can ask these questions or can guide the conversation behind the scenes or help with talking points or strategy, timing, to work alongside the fundraising team. Or
Now, when you say a
the
plan
CEO.
giving specialist, when you talk about a plan giving specialist, talk to us about what that looks like. Really, who that person would be, what that would look like, how that would work for. Because a lot of us are sitting here going, "Yeah, I don't have anybody that we don't." Do we have anybody that can do that?
Well, certainly I'm a consultant that can assist.
Well,
any department.
yes, I want to go
But-
without
but
saying.
as
Obviously,
far
we
as-
provide that services.
A plan giving officer or a staff person who's trained in both major gifts and plan giving would be helpful. They can identify that way on the spot. They can identify, looking through their portfolios, who might be a good prospect for these kinds of conversations and how to handle both kinds of conversations. A lot of organizations, if they don't have plan giving staff, they may have people who are doing thank you calls to donors, and they can be also trained on how to recognize a potential plan gift situation. When they're thanking someone, they can be, chatting with them, finding out more about them, how they got involved, and there may be an opportunity to mention these other ways of giving or the Legacy Society. Did they know that we have a Legacy Society? Things like that could then be followed up by another higher level staff person. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
I want to go back. Elizabeth had said, would you please just talk again about the initial conversation? And I don't know, Elizabeth, if you're saying, this just a general thing, somebody that is in this situation, or you want to make a general start, but I'll leave that to Lisa to determine and just kind of revisit that for a second.
Again, just keeping it simple, talking about news about the organization, finding out how they got involved, what motivates them, tell them about new programs. You might want to say, again, what would you like to accomplish with your philanthropy? I know you've been giving for a long time. What sort of legacy would you like to create? Did you know many of our donors have been able to stretch further by making a blended gift, including your annual gift and a gift in their will? What if you could give now and receive payments for life? We have a program like that. Would you be willing to consider including us as one of the organizations that you have in your will? Or what would it take for you to include our charity in your estate plan? Things like that.
I think those are good. Yeah.
So. That's good. I think too is because I think about it for myself, and I plan on living to be 120, but I'm still at 57 or 56. I'm thinking about it. It's stuff because we're actively working on our stuff. And so these conversations are not going to be foreign to these folks, unless you're talking to somebody that's 26 and they don't care.
One of the easiest things for people to suggest is a beneficiary designation on a financial account or a retirement account or an insurance policy. That's so easy. It doesn't even involve an attorney. So that's one of the easy, concrete ways you can just ask them to consider something like that. And then as you get to know them, you can, develop some of the additional ideas about putting something in the will.
No, that's a really good idea.
And there are all different ways to confirm these gifts. Every organization is different, but it might be as simple as a letter of intent or a statement of support. Some organizations, that's all that's required, including, a signature, and it's not a legally binding document, which makes it much easier.
Sure, that's like super easy. Yeah,
but some organizations may need an irrevocable document. So that has to be figured out.
Okay.
Any last questions before we give something away? All right. Lisa, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you wanted to offer everyone on the call a little bit of your time one-on-one, correct?
Anyone on the call, if you'd like to speak further, I would offer a half-hour discovery call with me to talk about, what challenges you're having with your program or goals that you have and how I might be able to help you.
That's awesome.
So my contact info is somewhere.
Yep, well, it's on the screen, right?
It's on there.
So Lisa Lager, NYC. Yep, Lisa Lager at NYC@gmail.com. And there's her
I'm on
phone
LinkedIn
number.
too.
And Courtney, if you would drop her LinkedIn profile link in the chat, as well as mine and Jason's. And you can also throw in we're going to put our business in the street, like Trevor says, and throw our emails in there as well. That'd be fantastic. Anybody can reach out.
I hope that you are one conversation away from closing a magnificent gift for your organization.
Jason, what are we giving away today as HGA?
Oh gosh, let's give away. How about a Cabo all-inclusive trip? We haven't done a Cabo in a while. Okay. Let's give a Cabo all-inclusive trip away.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is they're going to put it up there. If you'll text HGA, the number you're going to text it to is 73747. Just pull your handy dandy phone out. HGA to 73747. We'll keep you in the know on the go with all the cool things that are coming out with great information like this with Lisa. And then in return, as you enroll, it's all going to pull up. I'm going to call one of your numbers as you do this, and I'm going to give away a trip that you can use in your next fundraiser to raise more money.
And we're going to call you live. So please turn your ringers back on. Don't miss this call.
And
so we're going to give it about another minute. And, Lisa, what is typically just how this kind of goes as far as when somebody starts this process? What have you seen as, like from an engagement to setting something up to say, okay, we're going to put somebody on retainers, that kind of something, we've got somebody set up on retainer. They're going to talk to anybody that we have come along. Because obviously, putting somebody on the payroll, that's not realistic, but having somebody there, what does that look like? If I'm an executive director listening to this, I'm going, I've got 2 or 3 people that I've talked to, but I don't have the knowledge and I don't even know who to call, but I'm going to call you. What is that? How do those engagements work? And I know you'll talk about specific, I'm just in broad terms, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, I work on retainer. That's one of the ways I work with organizations. I provide one-on-one coaching. I can be available for a couple of hours a month to talk to them. I can train the board. I can work with you on a whole statement of work that would be possible. Be like your inside outside consultant to deal with all matters plan giving.
Okay.
We could work out whatever the arrangement is, but it makes it easy to have somebody that can work alongside you and guide you and deal with some of these questions and make it more comfortable.
Okay.
To help you strategize and train your team.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Kim, I don't know. HGA 73747 should just, here we go. I got a winner. I've got a winner. Here we go. I'm calling them right now.
Oh, great.
Cabo all-inclusive. It's a great one. Oh, good. We can hear that one well. That's good.
Hello.
Hi. Who am I speaking with?
This is Beth Ann.
Hi, Beth Ann. Well, congratulations. You just won a trip to Cabo to use in your next fundraiser to raise more money.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Beth Ann, we're going to get this information. Courtney's going to reach out to you. Tell me your last name, Beth Ann.
It's Gruner, Gruner, and then Lugar, Lugar.
Okay. We'll find that.
What organization?
Yeah, what's your organization?
It's Overcoming Together. We are for ovarian cancer patients and caregivers and their families, so we help them through their journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and being on today, and we'll get this information over to you. So Courtney's going to be sending this over to you directly, all the information, how to get that trip and all the information for it, okay? Go out and raise a lot of money and help a lot of people.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yay. I love that.
Bye-bye.
Next week, we have our guest is going to be Randy Molland. He's going to be talking about using LinkedIn to find corporate sponsors and funders. So LinkedIn, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity there. So tune into that as well if you're not maximizing LinkedIn.
Yeah. If on other stuff, if there's something comes up, obviously Lisa's going to put out there for 30 minutes, talk about extended giving, which is a very, very generous opportunity. And I highly encourage you to take her up on it. If you want to connect with us, you can text coach to 73747. Coach to 73747. It'll give you a link. You just pop that right in there, set up a time, and I'll spend an hour with you. We'll talk about fundraising. So anything we can do to help you guys, please don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully see you next week, because we're going to give away something else too, besides great information. Lisa, thank you. Lisa. Thank you so much. It means so much you spend the time with us. Okay. All right, everybody.
Have a great day. Have a great afternoon.
We'll see you.